Hello everybody, welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news and transfer news as United receive a double transfer setback this morning. Sack fears for Amorim grow and some very interesting comments around Cunha, also Mainoo, and what happens tomorrow if we don't win? You know, I think that we are still pondering this Everton loss on Monday, but the reality is another loss tomorrow, and I think we know that if you thought this week was bad, next week will be even worse. But we've got some breaking news coming in this morning around Elliot Anderson and Ivan Toney, and it's not necessarily good news around this. We're going to start off with Elliot Anderson, but before I do that, you can see a lovely Christmas jumper behind me. The Christmas tree could be up later today if things go well. It could be appearing there. I think it is time, but we've only got 100 of these left. These limited edition knitted jumpers, there's only 100 left. There's no mediums left at all. So you've either got to go a little bit bigger with a large, which I think you'll be fine with. But if you want to get one, there's only 100 left now. We do ship them worldwide. Get your order in this morning. Links in the description and the live chat, or go to United Stand Shopify. But there might be only 100 Christmas jumpers left, but Elliot Anderson might not be left at all. This news coming in this morning from Craig Hope, who was very good in the Daily Mail around the Sesko deal in the summer, you might remember. He says Manchester City are ready to make England midfielder Elliot Anderson their top target in 2026. The word inside Premier League rivals is that it will take a fee in excess of 80 million to sign him. City are said to be aware that both Liverpool and Man United will be interested in Anderson, and there is a feeling that a player who will likely be an England regular for several years is too good to pass by. He is their preference over Adam Wharton. And look, I want to get into the Amorim stuff from yesterday. I know Terry and Beth have spoken about it. I think one thing just to pop in your head that we'll talk about in a few minutes' time. Amorim speaks in depth about the characteristics of the team still need to be worked on and we're a work in progress. I do, even as somebody that wants him to succeed, say, why after 12 months are you still talking about a team that lacks intensity? I think that reflects terribly on the manager unless there's a bigger reason here. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But look, to improve that intensity and to improve the characteristics of the side, you want to bring in players like Elliot Anderson. And I draw your attention to comments this week that have come out from David Ornstein, Laurie Whitwell, other journalists around Man United talking about Elliot Anderson being the priority for Manchester United. And people get very excited about that because they think if he's the priority, we're going to sign him. But the reality is that Manchester City will want him. Liverpool will want him and other clubs will want him. And are we not walking down the same old track that we did with Kenda in Ineos a year ago? Oh, we want Kenda. Doesn't mean we're going to get him. People had him in our best 11 in February this year because Ornstein said Man United want Kenda and they were putting him in the team for the summer and the team next season. And, oh, if we can just get through this season, we've got Kenda. I'm seeing people doing it with Elliot Anderson and I'm like, hold on a minute. Do you never learn about this football club? Elliot Anderson's the priority. What chance have we actually got of getting him? If we haven't got a clear run at him and he's not cheap, that's two big barriers for United straight away. Ineos don't want to pay over £70 million for anybody, and they don't want to go in a battle against anybody because they will lose. So already I'm looking at it and I'm going, it's going to be Belabor. It's going to be Belabor on the cheap because nobody else wants him, and that's what it'll be. Because Elliot Anderson as a midfielder is absolutely... It's correct. Tick in the box. He should be a priority for Manchester United. You watch him play as a couple of weeks ago. You look at him week to week. You look at his stats. You look at the eye test. You look at him playing for England. You look at what he's doing for a club that's in the bottom half of the table. You know, I'm not saying, we bought Roy Keane from Nottingham Forest. He's not Roy Keane. Forget about that. But he is potentially a Declan Rice like from West Ham. He's potentially a Caicedo like from Brighton. He is a player that's definitely got to move. A McAllister from Brighton. He's certainly a player that can go from a certain level to a top level. And you want that at Manchester United. But we've got to stop falling into this trap of, we're going to buy a midfielder in the summer and it's going to be a top midfielder and Elliot Anderson's the priority, because that's just spin. That's just journalists doing what they do because the club are telling them to do it. And basically, it's getting you to renew your season ticket. It's getting you to buy a bloody Man United kit for Christmas. It's playing on your emotions that, let's ignore how bad the reality is because in the future we're going to do this. And are we going to do it? I'd sit here now and say the chances of us signing Elliot Anderson have got to be 25% or lower. Nothing higher than that. But you read the headlines and everything, and everyone's sort of like going, oh, it's a sure thing. He's a really good midfielder. He would massively improve our team. But it will come at a price, and there'll be competition. And I think it's, I know that's what we need, but getting that done is going to be really, really, really difficult. And I think when it's only November still, and you've got Man City in there, I mean, imagine what it's going to be like come March, April, May, when the real negotiations take place. We're still 4 months off that, and we know Man City are in there. We know Liverpool are in there. It could get better. It could get better for Forest. It could get better for Anderson. It could get worse for United. And remember, the price will go up the more people are involved. So I think it's a really difficult, I mean, look, breaking news on a Saturday morning. I think that Elliot Anderson deal is really difficult for Manchester United to do in any circumstance. Even if we were in the top 4. Even if we had Champions League football, which is not guaranteed, and that's a really difficult deal to do, and people need to wake up and smell the coffee and stop falling for the spin articles about him being a priority. You know what? You might be walking down the street today and see somebody who's absolutely gorgeous and say, that's my priority, I want to marry them. What you might not realise is they find you very unattractive and they're already married and very happy. So your priority doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get it, does it? It really doesn't. So let me know your thoughts on that. Also, maybe not as significant, but certainly something for January before we talk about Amorim and his latest comments. It's just come in from Ben Jacobs, actually, that Ivan Toney unlikely to leave Saudi in January. Initial but genuine inquiries from Premier League club sides, but Al Ahly sporting director doesn't want to loan or sell while Toney remains settled in Saudi. So there was some talk of I think Man United need an experienced striker. We haven't got Sesko at the moment. There's some concern that injury might be a little bit longer. I don't think it is. I think he'll be back early to mid-December. However, as we saw last week, even if we'd had Sesko against Everton, you'd like another striker to come on and have maybe play with a 2. We don't have any at the moment, and Sesko is very inexperienced. So looking at an experienced striker as ASAP would be preferable, but it is not going to be Ivan Toney by the looks of it. He's going to be staying in Saudi. So as I said to you yesterday morning, I sort of look at the January transfer window and go, we absolutely need one midfielder as a minimum and ideally an experienced striker. And I sort of look at it and go, I think we're already being set up for another Glazer Christmas where it's talking about summer holidays instead of actually doing something in the winter. What's new about United and Ineos if we're doing the same things we've always done, which is neglecting a window that we absolutely need to utilise. Marlowe's our first super chat of the morning. He says, the problem with our squad is the chopping and changing. They never reach the level where the playing style, decisions and chemistry becomes an instinct. Well, I think I will just stop what I'm saying there for a moment because there is some topical stuff to go through, Marlowe. I think you're right and wrong in the sense that there is consistency in that team. There's one player that plays at nearly every minute of every game for the last 4 years, and his name's Bruno Fernandes. I think it's I'm going to say this, I think it's very difficult to build rhythm, chemistry, and strategic style patterns of play with a player like that in your team. I think it really is, because I think Bruno Fernandes can be a fantastic player, but I think he's an instinct player. I don't think he's a strategic player. I don't think, you sometimes watch teams like Brighton and you can see what they're doing from the back. You can see Liverpool when they're at their best, they do that. Certainly Manchester City do it. Arsenal do it. Bayern Munich do it. These are really good teams to watch, but it's very strategic what they do. It's, you can see the patterns of play and it's almost telepathic when it works. People know what other players like and they know where other players are going to be. Obviously, it's not working for Liverpool at the moment, but it has done. And with Man United, we've never had that. And I just don't think Bruno Fernandes, if you drop him into a Man City side or a Bayern Munich side, I'm not saying he wouldn't do well, but I guarantee, I think if Bruno Fernandes went to Bayern Munich and he did really well and people said, oh, you said he can't do it, I'd say, look at him. He's gone somewhere and suddenly he's disciplined. It's a bit like Rashford at Barcelona. And it's a bit like Garnacho at Chelsea. Have you noticed how Garnacho crosses and passes now? Have you noticed how Rashford does it as well? But at Man United, they wouldn't do it. I almost guarantee you if Bruno Fernandes went to Bayern Munich, he'd start playing disciplined football. But at Man United, they don't do it. And Bruno plays every minute of every game and he doesn't play. He's erratic. That's what I'm trying. He's good. I'm not saying I'm not digging Bruno out here. He's a very good player. He's arguably our best player. But he is on, you don't know what he's going to do every time he gets the ball. He might hit a 60-yard pass that way. He might play a simple 5-yard pass. And that's why we don't have rhythm and pattern. And that's why we haven't had a style of play for a decade, because nobody plays with any fluidity, consistency, rhythm or pattern. It's vibes football, isn't it? It's moments football. And how many years have we been saying that? So I think you raise a good point. We don't do that. And user says it's not the players. Mate, it's 100% the players. 100% the players, because it's transcended 5 managers. It's 100% the players. Of course it's the players. They just don't respect what's going on at Man United. I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, if they go to another club and they are disciplined, how's it the players? Because Garnacho's gone to Chelsea and basically been told, you pass the fucking ball or your career's over, because this is your last chance, pal. Rashford's gone to Barcelona and basically been told, you're in your last chance saloon. If you want to work and play for this team, you better play like everybody else. They've already got established patterns of play, and you either, what are you going to do? Carry on doing what you were doing at Man United? You won't be playing football. But at United, we've created this environment where you're allowed to be indisciplined in everything you do. You're allowed to not turn up for a match like Everton and start against Palace. I can't wait to see the team tomorrow, because I guarantee you he's not going to make many changes. And even if they win, I'm still going to say before the game, that is a fucking joke. Why is he not making changes? Why is it okay to... Bruno Fernandes and co should have been on social media on Tuesday offering refunds to everybody who went to that game. It was that bad. But there won't be any accountability, because there never is. Before we talk about some of Amorim's stuff, though, let me know your thoughts on what we've spoken about so far. So Elliot Anderson to Manchester City is now a possibility. They want him. And look, honestly, who are you going to choose? Manchester City, title contenders in the Champions League with one of the best managers in the game and has ever been, or Manchester United with a manager that could be sacked at any moment, a team that's indisciplined and isn't even in Europe. Unless he's a childhood Man United fan, I don't think we've got a cat and mouse chance, really. I don't think we can survive off Cunha and Mbeumo style transfers for long. They love Man United because they grew up liking Man United. I don't think Elliot Anderson did, so I don't think that's going to work. And it's not going to work all the time. What we're going to do, every player we want to look at, we're going to look at whether they had any pictures as kids with the United kit on. That seems to be our strategy at the moment. Potential Caicedo in Orozco, says Rajaf. Mate, if you want to do that, I'm sure somebody somewhere's done a video about Orozco being the next Caicedo. I'll say to you this in a very calm way. It's always great to sign exciting young players, but tell me the last young player that got developed at Manchester United. And I used Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham could have come to Manchester United. He went to Dortmund. He's now playing for Real Madrid. There's absolutely no way Jude Bellingham, if he'd signed for Man United at 17, would be the player he is now. No way. And that's what worries me about these players. I see people online going, oh, we've bought another worldy teenager. He's going to be the next Caicedo. And I go, I really hope you're right. But look at what we've done over the last few years. And why are we buying these players when we're absolutely terrible at developing players? And it's such a toxic environment in that team will actually burn them out. Because I'm telling you now, you say Orozco, I say Dorgu. Dorgu, 2 years ago, was basically going to be one of the best left backs in the game. And anybody who knows anything about football knows I'm right. But people will go, oh, bollocks, he's not that good. I'm not talking about Dorgu, the Man United player. 2 years ago, he was being spoken about as being one of the best up-and-coming left backs in world football. He's now at Man United, and people ain't saying that, are they? So that's what I worry about when we start talking about these teenagers that we're buying. I'd rather we were buying... it's impossible, but I'd rather buy Caicedo now than when we were trying to buy him, because we wouldn't develop him. There's no point buying amazing talent if you can't develop it. And I don't think we can develop talent at the moment. So it is exciting to buy them, but who's going to develop them? Who's going to nurture them? Who's going to give them the minutes in the environment that's going to nurture them? I don't think we have that at the moment. And I think that feeds into what Ruben Amorim was saying, and there's a couple of new comments coming out about it. But I was listening to his press conference yesterday, and I was sort of listening to it, and there was a couple of things that sort of jumped out to me, where he spoke about how we need to improve the characteristics of the team. We should have had enough to beat 10 men. It's these characteristics we will try to change. And effectively saying, if you play for Manchester United, you must be ready if it's 7 a.m. It's a privilege and a big responsibility. The time of the kickoff doesn't matter. It's the same for both teams. It's away. He's talking about the 12 o'clock kickoff against Palace, to be fair. But he says our fans will be there. It's not an issue. We just need to do our job. If anyone has been doing these things right since last year, it's our supporters. Now it's our turn. He spoke about Monday night and said, I felt like we had more intensity in certain games and then we didn't have it on Monday. And I've got to say, look, Ruben Amorim has to sit in front of the press. That's his job. And I don't blame him for what I'm about to say. But I don't know about you, but even as somebody that wants him to do well, it's hard at the moment to think it will go well. But also, I think I just feel so sorry for Amorim. I know there's a lot of people that want him out, and I know there's people who want to criticise him. The majority of us are actually with him and want him to do well. But even I am listening to his press conferences and I'm going, this is a car crash. Like, this is, what is he supposed to do? What are you supposed to do when you've had a horrific first season, you show a little bit of promise, and then you have an Everton result like that? You can't spin a positive out of that. That's what I'm saying. It's almost like being the politician that has to stand in front of the cameras, knowing that there is nothing good to say, and you're going to get absolute rinsed, and you've got to try and say something that in some way, shape or form shows hope, when you know there's not really anything you can say because it's going to be full of holes. And basically what he's saying is we need to improve the characteristics, we need time, we need to bring intensity. We're Manchester United, it's a privilege to wear the shirt, and we've got to turn up whether it's 7 a.m, 12 p.m. or 8 p.m. at night. But the problem is they didn't turn up on Monday, did they? And it's all right saying, we need to improve the characteristics and I need more time. My only positive interpretation of that is that you need to sign a lot more players, which I do agree with, because if you think that you can pick the team from Monday again and expect them to turn up for the next 10 games and win your 10 games, well, you're massively mistaken. And the problem he's got at the moment is, and it is right in a sense, is that he keeps saying the same things as he did a year ago. It's going to take time to improve this. We're going to suffer. We've got to get the intensity up. We've got to improve the characteristics of the team. But when you're fundamentally using the vast majority of the players that played in the Europa League final, is it any surprise there is no change? I mean, I think at the core, you're still asking Amorim to polish a turd and he's being blamed for it. I do believe that. And people are going to go, oh, you just live up the arse of Amorim. I don't live up the arse of Amorim. I'm actually quite critical of him. And some people think I'm a subtle Amorim outer. I'm not. I'm just on the middle ground. I'm not massively saying he's the guy, and I'm certainly not Amorim out. But when I look at it, I go, he keeps talking about the characteristics of the team. He keeps talking about the intensity of the team, and he keeps talking about having time to improve those things. When in reality, I think what he's really saying is, I need new players. And I agree with that. I look at that midfield and I go, yeah, you need new midfielders. I look at the attack and I go, yeah, you need an experienced striker. I look at the wing backs and I go, yeah, you need that. And let's not forget, he might need a goalkeeper. I mean, I like Lemens, but how anybody can say he's definitely the guy is incredible after a month. Like, he looks decent, he's got my backing, and we have to be patient, and he will make mistakes. But what if he's not the guy? What if, like Dorgu or Yoro, he just starts to really struggle with the intensity and the pressure of it? So who knows what positions he needs, but he definitely needs a lot of players. Unfortunately, he's got an ownership that's going to deflect, put it on him. I mean, when the going gets tough, the manager gets gone. That's the strategy of the Glazers. When I think you can look at every single manager and say, realistically, it comes down to, the right backing for the right manager, and has every manager had that right backing as far back as Van Gaal? He said, look, I didn't get the players I wanted. And I think it's very, very clear that Amorim didn't get the players he wanted in the summer as well. I don't know why we won't have that conversation. It's very, very clear to me that Amorim didn't get the players he wanted. And I think it's because of the glazing of Sir Jim Radcliffe that people want to pretend that something new is happening. But the Glazers don't like spending in January. Are we going to spend in January? Well, I thought it was a new world under Ineos, so why aren't we spending in January? The Glazers were very bad at getting Jose or Ollie or Van Gaal or Ten Hag's first choice. But Ineos aren't. But well, they are. Like, Sesko was not categorically Amorim's first choice, and he didn't get a midfielder. And on top of that, he wanted an experienced striker, and Sesko's not experienced. So Amorim hasn't had what he's wanted. Let's be very clear. Dorgu wasn't the left back he wanted. I mean, to be fair, it was Mendes, and that's very, very difficult. But he hasn't had what he's wanted. I would say Cunha and Mbeumo are probably what he wanted. Lemens wasn't what he wanted. Sesko wasn't what he wanted, and he didn't get a midfielder. So he hasn't got what he wanted. And I think when I look at that side, I do sometimes wonder when Amorim says you don't know about the difficulties I've had. I do wonder if a lot of it's to do with the profile of players that he wanted to bring in. Because, I mean, I don't intend to, I might do a video about this at some point, but I genuinely think that there are sack fears around Amorim. I mean, there's 2 results tomorrow that put a load of pressure on Amorim. Losing to Palace and Liverpool winning at West Ham changes the whole dynamic of the media. At the moment, thankfully, it's all about Slot, and rightly so. And United have sort of been left alone. If Liverpool were doing okay, this week would have been a lot worse for Amorim. And if Liverpool win tomorrow and we lose, it's going to be horrific for Amorim. So I think that in some ways that Everton loss hasn't been as bad as it could be for the club and for the manager. It's been bad for us as fans, but I don't think it's been as bad as it could be. 2 results tomorrow change everything, and we're on the cusp with that. But look, I do share the frustrations. Well, I do understand when people say he talks about characteristics, he talks about intensity. He's the manager. How is he still talking about this near to Christmas in his 2nd season? How is he still in a situation where he's talking to the fans and the media about the players lacking intensity and essentially not doing what he wants them to do? That's the thing. I was listening to Terry's show last night, bad sign. It's a bad sign when the manager is sat in an interview talking about the intensity of players not being there, the characteristics not being right. That will always reflect on the manager. It will. If you are a manager of an office and you've got a couple of workers that are abusive to staff and, other customers, then and they keep doing it, at some point people are going to go, well, why have you not done anything about that? I know it's their fault, but you're their manager and you manage them and they're impacting your results. So why have you not changed that? Now, if you say, well, it's the boss's son and daughter, I can't sack them, people might have a bit of sympathy, and there might be mitigating circumstances for Amorim. But I personally do think, I go back to Emery, Sean Dyche, David Moyes. There are many managers that, 12 months into their job are showing, sometimes 3 months, sometimes 3 weeks into their job, are showing major improvement because the players react to them. I think the worrying thing about United, and I saw it under Rangnick, is that when we change a manager now, we don't get a manager bounce. And we haven't had a manager bounce under Rangnick, and we haven't had a manager bounce under Amorim, and we're 12 months in. That's a worry. That's a worry. And the logical thing is that you need to change the players, but it's always cheaper to change the manager. But it's a massive worry. And, as I said, I was listening to Terry's video last night and I thought, this is a huge concern. Like, it's a real concern. I have total empathy with the manager because I don't think he's not setting the team up right. I don't think he's not giving them the right instructions, but they're certainly not responding to it. I mean, Monday night was a big up yours to every Man United fan, Ruben Amorim, the board, and anybody that cares about Man United. I don't think anybody said that, and I think if someone like Roy Keane said it on the overlap, it would go viral. But the reality is, and I'd say this in front of the dressing room of Man United, and maybe they'd try and beat me up or something. I'd have to take some security in, but I would say every single one of you may as well have walked out to Old Trafford and just gone like that. to the cameras and everybody, you know, and you know, shown as a screen print of your wages, because you basically went out and went up yours to everybody that cares about this football club. That performance was a big fuck you to every single Man United fan, to Ruben Amorim, to Sir Jim Radcliffe, to anybody that's emotionally attached to this football club. You basically walked out and went, nah, fuck this. And they did. They did. Nobody can tell me any different. Not one of those players even hit a 6 out of 10 in a Man United shirt. A Man United shirt. You know what? I don't want to get like sentimental, but you think about the greats that have worn that shirt. You know, the Duncan Edwards, the George Best, the Bobby Charltons, the Dennis Laws. You know, the greats that have managed that club, the Sir Matt Busbys, the Sir Alex Fergusons. Even players that are still around now. We mentioned one, Roy Keane, the David Beckhams. You know, these... And then we look at that performance on a Monday night and you sort of go, it's not that they lost and they gave everything. They lost and they didn't turn up. And that does reflect on the manager. Of course it does. But is it the manager's fault? And I'm at that point now where I don't think it is. I mean, I saw what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer said about Ancelotti, and obviously Ancelotti hasn't said it. It's third-hand information. But Ole's done this interview saying that... something along the lines of that he spoke to Ancelotti about why he wouldn't take the Manchester United job, and he said something along the lines of no, the pressure is too much. And you know, I don't really think Ancelotti means the pressure is too much from the fans and the media. He's managed Real Madrid, he's managed AC Milan, he's managed PSG, he's managing Brazil. I think he's talking about a different type of pressure. I think he's talking about the pressure of trying to do your job with shit owners. I think he's talking about the pressure of not being able to implement your plans because you can't remove and buy players. He's managed Bayern Munich as well. I saw people completely misinterpret what Solskjaer said about Ancelotti, about the pressure. It ain't pressure from the... So I saw one reply going, this is the problem, our fans are our biggest problem at United. I thought, shut up. The fans are the best thing about this football club, because most of us are moaning because we know the standards. There ain't no way Ancelotti would say no to United because the pressure of the fans on social media or the media. That's, you know, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, AC Milan, Brazil, PSG. Ain't going to worry about that. That comes with, you know, every manager knows you're going to get shit from the fans if you do bad. He's talking about the pressure of waking up in the morning and going, I can't build the team I want because these people won't let me do it and these players aren't good enough. That's what he's talking about. And it's amazing how people misinterpret that. One of the world's greatest managers, one of the greatest managers there's ever been, apparently wouldn't take our job because basically the pressure would sink him of not being able to do what he wants to do. And I think that's how I interpret it. There's a myth among our fans that if player A on the pitch is not playing well, then player B on the bench, who had all week to prove himself in training, must be better, and the manager is stubborn, says KA. Well, I saw something this morning about Mainoo and Napoli again. Look, we'll see what the team is tomorrow, but I've watched football for over 40 years. When I was 6, and the reason that book's there and the reason I support Manchester United is my granddad, who's no longer with us, as I've said many times before. If you think I'm passionate about football, oh, unbelievable, unbelievable. Lived, slept, eat football, and used to manage his own teams. At 6, I'd go with him on a Sunday morning for his Sunday morning team and just stand on the sides and watch football. You know, I love football at all levels. That's why I do. That's football. And I look at it and I go, you know what? It's sad where we're at the moment, because I look at United and I don't think it's got anything to do with what people think it is, in the sense that I don't know what's gone wrong at Man United. I don't recognise Man United. As I said in the preview on Thursday, if you've not seen it, I don't recognise this football club anyway. But tomorrow, if I see Casemiro and Bruno in the midfield, I've watched football, like I said, at all levels all my life. I've played football, and I've never, ever known a team that doesn't turn up get picked again, especially in the midfield. I don't care if it's 40 years ago with my granddad's Sunday morning team, or whether it's my school team, or whether it's a Sir Alex Ferguson team, or a Sean Dyche team. If your team doesn't turn up in a massive game and embarrasses you, You don't pick it again. No, I just don't. And somebody will come in and go, well, this happened in this league or, whatever. But I don't recognise that. As a consumer of football, I think we've all got patterns of play in the way that, we all have our favourite formation, we all have our favourite game, we all have our, distinct style of football that we want, our favourite type of goal. Some people want a worldie from outside the box, some people like free kicks, some people like an individual goal, some people like a banger volley, some people like a team goal. We're all unique in what we like about football, and I don't recognise, in all the years I've been watching football, I don't recognise a team that does what it does on Monday and then gets picked again on the Sunday. And I have a fear that that's what I'm going to see tomorrow, especially when you've got Mainoo and Agate, who are both internationals, both have good reputations, both have had a bad season. But Casemiro and Bruno were fucking awful on Monday. And I've got people going, well, Casemiro, Agate and Mainoo will be worse. You're mad if you think you're picking them. And I'm like, that's football. That's literally football. You have 4 midfielders, and if 2 of them are shite, you give the other 2 a chance. Otherwise, why are you paying them? Why are they there? If that's called management. That's called standards. That's called reacting to something. So basically, you know what? So, Formula 1 race at the weekend, your driver smashes it into a wall for on purpose, and you've got a backup driver who's a good backup driver. No, I'll trust you in the car again. You make the bloody change. Otherwise, what's the point? But I think we're almost indoctrinated into the fact that he won't do that. And that to me I think that's so wrong. I mean, we haven't had the team news yet, but the fact that so many people are going, no way should Agate and Mainoo play tomorrow, and he won't do that. And I'm like, absolutely they should play. Because what normally happens is you give those 2 people a chance and they're starting the game and they grab it. And I'd rather give Agate and Mainoo the start, and if they fuck up, go, okay, right, we definitely need a new midfield. But it'll be bloody Bruno and Casemiro, of course it will. It won't be Cunha, though. He is out. Now, I don't want to say I told you so, because that's 3 words I don't like. 4 words. But I did allude to this on the morning show in Manchester yesterday. I did say, if Cunha got knocked out last Saturday, the concussion protocols are 10 days. So he can't play on day 8 against Palace. So Amorim did confirm it at lunchtime. I didn't know that. I didn't have that information. It was just logical. So he's not playing tomorrow, and I suspect that will be because of the concussion protocols. Apparently it was quite a severe head injury. There was talk of him being knocked out for a bit. I don't know whether that's true or rumour. However, he's clearly adhering to the concussion protocol. So he'll be back for the game at home to West Ham on Thursday, but he'll miss the Palace game. And that is a big miss. That is a big miss, because you look at Monday night, obviously it's a big miss, and Cunha is one of those players at Wolves that really turns up. So you want players that are going to turn up, and he's a good player. However, even if Cunha, was only available for the bench, it would have been a help. And I think the big problem is, with no Sesko and no Cunha, Mason Mount can't play 90 minutes. And you're very reliant on probably playing Ahmad out of position. Xerxes again, probably. And there's nothing on the bench. So I think that's a problem tomorrow. I mean, I spoke to a Palace fan I think they're coming on the fan forum actually tomorrow. I spoke to a Palace fan in the studio on Thursday, or in the office on Thursday, and it's weird what rival fans do now. He was like 3-1, I'm really confident we're going to beat you. And I was like, you are playing Strasbourg tonight and you only get 2 days rest. And he was like, no, we'll be fine. So look, I haven't done my prediction for the game. I think it might be a draw if you want to know, but I think it's going to be very, very difficult. Really, really difficult. I wouldn't be surprised if we turn up and won. If it wasn't for a horse, we might have ended up with a slightly better owners. It is what it is, I guess, says Callum. Thank you for your super chat, Callum. Keel Robinson's in the house. He says, I wish him well, potentially Ancelotti at Everton situation, but I'm Amorim out. It's like a loving relationship, but only one partner wants a baby, says Keel. There we go. Can you see Amorim losing his job this season, and who could slot in temporarily or long term? By the way, I'm still not Amorim out, but doubting him more, says Gamer. Look, I always think while Gareth Southgate's available, That's a very, very dangerous person. Very dangerous person. I feel like, you know, it's like being one of the little pigs and you know the big bad wolf is lurking around and, you know, you forget to lock your door. Whilst that prat as a coach, I don't know him as a person, is out there, I think that worries me. It really does. Amorim doesn't deserve any new players, says Marvin. His new signings has not hit the ground. Even if he gets the players he wants, it's not guaranteed they will work. Well, I disagree with you, Marvin, because I think that whilst I understand your point completely, I look at it and go, if you're a counter-attacking team that can only play 4-3-3, and you bring in a manager that plays a totally different style of football with a totally different style of play and a totally different formation, you can't just buy him 4 or 5 players. That's not backing the manager. So I understand you say, I don't think he deserves more players because you don't think he's good enough. But logically, he does deserve players because they brought in somebody that can never work with the players they've got and they haven't completed the journey. So I think he does deserve players, yeah. He definitely deserves midfielders because he's basically working with Ten Hag's shit midfield at the moment. That midfield was shit for Ten Hag as well. Eric says, which combination is... sorry, I've just lost that. It's completely disappeared. I will come back to you, Eric. Which combination is worse, McFred or Bruno and Casemiro? We desperately need midfielders. I can't keep watching this every week. I got asked this the other day, Eric, and I think Bruno and Casemiro are better than McTominay and Fred because Fred was crap first touch and McTominay was a rubbish midfielder. Number 10. George Best Belfast says, morning, Mark. Reality is anyone United buy are players no one else wants or they are long life United fans and are offered wages no one else will pay, says George Best. Or they're really young and need developing and we can't develop players. So we probably nailed the 3 patterns there. We don't need to develop them in the United pressure cooker. Just send them on loan like Chelsea and bring them back as refined gems. Start with Mainoo. I like this, Kai. I was actually having this chat with Ricky on Thursday night. And I said, there is no point in buying all these young players and then thinking we're going to develop them. We either buy them afterwards, which is too expensive, or we buy them young and we get them out to clubs where they go and develop for 2 years. But the interesting thing is, that's obviously not the plan, because Kone's been here a year, Obe's been here a year, Heaven's been here a year, and Leon, we didn't ship him out straight away either. So our plan is crap. We buy these young players and then we sort of like go train with the under 18s, train with the under 21s. We obviously think we're going to develop them and we're not. You're right, you should get them out on loan to the Championship or to Europe or something like that and let them go and develop, which is exactly what Brighton did with Caicedo. Potential, I've done that one, okay. Right, let me carry on because there's a couple of other bits from Amorim. Just on Semenyo, I'm telling you now, we ain't in for Semenyo at the moment. Like, we're not. We were never in for him. And it still keeps circulating like a shit that won't flush. It's a rubbish story, and essentially, I think Semenyo wants out of Bournemouth in January. So you use Man United. Actually, can I just scrub that and say, if Man United signed Semenyo, it would be hilariously thick because it's just not the position we need. But when it keeps floating around, and I don't know a United fan that wants it to happen anyway. It's just not the player we need at the moment. Also, on Martinez, Amorim said he's on the bench. That's because he's ready. We have to manage his playing time. But if he's on the bench, it's because he's ready to play. I mean, I sometimes wonder about whether these managers just aren't very good at interviews. So if he's on the bench, he's ready. But we have to manage his playing time. But he's ready. He's not ready, is he? He's not ready if you've got to manage his playing time. What you're saying is he's not match fit. His body's ready, but he's not match fit. That's the truth. Some people will read that and go, well, why isn't he playing instead of Luke Shaw? Luke Shaw's shite. But he's not match fit. It's like Xerxes. He's not match fit. It's like Mainoo. These players aren't match fit. Some of them aren't match fit because they're coming back from injury, and some of them aren't match fit because you don't play them. Martinez is not ready to start games because he needs match sharpness. But we've got to start bloody getting him that. And the problem is, every game's a bloody cup final at the moment. So I think he's scared to put Martinez in. But, like, again, I'm sort of stuck with it. Like, if Martinez, obviously I know he's not going to be match fit, but how does he get match fitness without playing? Luke Shaw was bloody awful against Everton. Start Martinez tomorrow and give him like an hour. Get that match fitness into him. Like, it's the only way we're going to... People say, oh, yeah, but he might make a mistake. But where's the... We've got no crappy Europa League game or Carabao Cup to get him. You only get match fitness by playing. And I know every game's a cup final, but what are you going to do? Just stick him on the bench for the rest of the season because you can't afford to give him... You know, we've got to get him involved, really. He also said we have to win every game like last year. Sorry. It's the same thing. We had to win every game all the time last year and we took criticism because we're not winning. There are no excuses. If I look at the game, we should have more points. We lost control. We should have more points, and that is disappointing. I saw something today, and if I find it, I'm gonna say this. I will find it. It was really, really interesting. And yeah, okay. So basically, Manchester United in the first... I mean, it's a strange stat because obviously every game's 90 minutes. But if you take the points we would have had if we'd only played first halves this season, we'd be in third place. So our first half performances, if that was what you got points for, we'd be third. Our second half performances, if that's what you get points for, we'd be 18th. And there ended the lesson. So, you know, Amorim, I'm sure, because we're a very data-driven club, knows this. But the question has to be why. Why are we third in the league for the first 45 minutes and 18th in the league for the second half? So basically, we're a title contender in the first half and we're a relegation contender in the second half. But we're not in Europe, everybody. Oh, somebody call Ainsley Harriott because we're cooking in the second half when we've got only one game a week. What the hell is that about? Why the hell are we a relegation team in the second half, but we're a good team in the first half? It's inconsistency FC, says Wizard, but it's also unforgivable. We're not in Europe. When you think about it, across a season where you do half decent in the Carabao Cup, FA Cup and Europe, that's another 20 games. That's an increase of a third on what we're going to play. And yet we can't play well in the second half. What's that all about? And it can't be fitness, so it's got to be mentality. It's light switch FC, isn't it? I mean, honestly, I'm tired of pointing the finger at players, but bloody hell. What does that say about you as a player if in the first half you're decent and in the second half you're total shit? It says you are inconsistent. It says you are unreliable. It says you can't be trusted. And it says you shouldn't be at Man United. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And, you know, I don't think Amorim sat there at half-time saying, get the celebrations out, let's all have a beer. Because that would be a reason why you'd be shit in the second half. You're a bit tipsy and you've had a bit too much to eat. I mean, that's not happening, is it? I guarantee you the half-time talk is the same as the first. But it's almost like, you know, the first half is eating your lovely roast dinner on a Sunday lunchtime, and the second half is, a sleep afterwards. It's almost like the first half, I'm loving this, and then second half, oh, God, I'm full up now. You know, it's mad. It's mad. Also, I think, I've said this before, I think the inability to rotate hurts you because what happens in the second half? You have to make subs. Everybody does. And our subs come on and the levels drop because they're not match fit. They're not match fit. So if you bring someone like Xerxes on who's not match fit, it's a drop, isn't it? Because you're playing against players that are match fit. But the rotation of our squad's terrible because Brighton aren't in Europe. Bournemouth aren't in Europe, but they make subs and they still do well. And that's because their manager has rotated the squad and kept everybody sharp. We haven't kept our players sharp. One game a week and we've just not been able to do it, which is strange. Amorim's failure to sell Bruno and buy two midfielders may sink him. We could get Gallagher and Baleba. The fans would probably be more patient as well, says Jason. Yeah, you can't change the past, but I don't disagree. My problem when we discussed whether or not Cunha and Mbeumo have been good signings is that even Mbeumo looked much better in his former team. Well, you know, somebody said to me yesterday, in relation to Cunha, has he been a good signing? We all like him, but he's actually been out quite a lot, hasn't he? I'm Amorim in, but if he doesn't change up the team tomorrow, as you say, he's essentially sacking himself, and none of us can defend that, says Sound Dog. I think tomorrow's results and tomorrow's team, I think we're in a bit of a false sense of security at the moment. I don't think people realise what happens tomorrow if we don't get a result. I think tomorrow is a line in the sand game, and he needs to get something out of it. And he needs to send a message as well, because I think even if he wins tomorrow with the team from Monday, people won't trust. They'll just go, oh, here they go. They've turned up again. I think he needs to get a performance tomorrow with a team that gives us something to go, okay, this is it. I think it's a huge game. I think behind the scenes, they'll be looking for a new manager, says Rory. If he makes it to summer, it's sack or extend his contract. Very, very true. Thank you very much. Okay, well, thanks everyone for watching today. Really, really appreciate it. The football's not that good today, so I'm not actually even thinking about doing any watch-alongs, but tomorrow's a massive day, as we know, and United's game is midday. Midday. So we're live for Countdown to Kickoff at like 10. The 10 o'clock show is Countdown to Kickoff. Weird kickoff tomorrow. But we have got an evening show for you as well, and if anything else happens, we will go live. So thank you, everybody, for watching, as always. Make sure you smash a like, and don't forget, less than 100 of those left. Grab it while you can, limited edition. We won't be doing one again. Every year it's a different design. I think that's the best one we've ever done. So get your orders in now. We do ship worldwide. Links in the live chat or the video description. Take care, everyone. I'll speak to you all later.